Vidya, I'll tell you, I'm a big wildlife lover. 90% of my vacations are in Indian jungles and Kanha and these places. So this film is the closest to my heart.
Oh, wow.
My question is that, Vidya, when I saw this film, my first reaction was that it's such a common story in these areas. It's such a universal story. Why did it take so long to make a film that's so real?
Because there is only one Amit Masurkar.
Very well
I
said.
keep using the term unusual for him because even I feel unique does not do justice because each of us is unique.
Right.
But his thinking, his worldview, the way he approaches performances, the way he tells his stories, the subjects he chooses, everything is unusual. So I
Right.
think we were waiting for Amit Masurkar to happen. But I'm not complaining if you're partial towards our film. But I have to tell you, Rohit, that since the release on Friday, I'm surprised with the number of people who've written to me saying, I'm a wildlife enthusiast.
Right.
I love the wild, and most of my holidays are to wildlife sanctuaries. And I'm
Right.
like, these are things you don't even know about people.
Yeah,
But the
yeah.
number of people who've written to me about this just tells me that this was the right time for the film to have happened.
And so, when I was watching, so real, the gypsies, the people, your uniforms, people around, it was very, very real. Vidya, so, when Amit came with this subject, were you aware of this problem that exists? We keep seeing in the news, man-animal conflict. Were you aware what a forest officer goes through?
Not at all, I have to admit, because even when I've read it in the newspaper and stuff, I've glanced through it, and um, I have to say that though I've done some jungle safaris, um, I wouldn't call myself a wildlife enthusiast or
Right,
an animal lover.
right.
Uh, so I was not, I was indifferent even when I
Mm,
read
mm,
about it or
mm.
heard about it. I remember the entire movement that started around the killing of Avni the tigress.
Yes, of course.
And I was like, even at that point, it didn't really consume too much of my attention.
Okay.
But when Amit came to me and when he shared the story idea, I was fascinated. I'd never imagined that someone would want to make a film, not just set in the jungle, but about the jungle,
Right.
about the forest department.
Yeah.
And I was getting to be a forest officer here in an upright one, a woman of very few words but of great integrity. And it just seemed like there was the Sherni is also a metaphor for the tigress in human form,
Right.
as much as it was for as much as it was about the real Sherni.
Right. Yeah.
I think both of them are finding their way, creating their way to safety.
Right.
Um, and I thought that was, and they both, I think, an endangered. They're both, I think, an endangered species
Yeah.
because what happens to Vidya Vincent, for example, in this is by the end of it, she gets, um, transferred to a taxidermy museum,
Hmm.
and it almost seems like she was not rewarded for the good work she did. So that can dent a person's um, drive and motivation and all of that. So which is why I'm saying, in that sense, it could end up changing her resolve to do
Right.
the right thing the right way,
True.
and therefore she is an endangered species as much as the real Sherni is.
Absolutely, absolutely. Very well said. You spoke about Avni. That happened a few years ago. Then, the day this film released, there was one tiger who was found with a bullet wound. There was
Yeah.
another tiger who died of an accident. This is again a man-animal conflict thing. Now are you closer to the subject? Do you see these stories?
Yeah, absolutely. For example, even that scene in the mine in Sherni,
Yes.
when Vijay Raj says that, on the one side we have the national highway, on the other we have the mine.
Mine.
How is the tigress going to go
Goes
from one
across.
jungle to the other?
Right.
A lot of them get killed in accidents. And of
Hmm.
course, this is, when I read about that and on the day of release, I was like,
Yeah, yeah,
it's crazy for it to,
absolutely.
it's
Yeah,
ironic. But I'm glad at least that, like it's changed something in me. It's changed my relationship with nature, I think, with the environment.
right.
So I feel that maybe it will make people think. And going by the reactions of people, the way they felt for T12 and her cubs, almost everyone who's messaged me has said that they teared up when the cubs were found.
Yeah, yeah,
A
absolutely.
cousin of mine wrote to me saying, why did T12 have to die? And I told her, I said, thank God it's a film and it's
Yeah,
a CGI tigress.
right. True, true, absolutely.
But I think what hopefully this film will manage to do is convert more people like me
Hmm.
to
Right.
at
I
least
wanted to
become
ask you
aware.
that itself that, say, when someone asked me the night I watched it, that, what did you think? I said, see, I'm the wrong person because this is close to my heart. So you go and ask someone who's maybe not gone to the jungle. So did you hear from those people as well who have never been and, you can see a
Yeah,
little bit of a change?
and the reactions have been astounding. The kind of messages people are writing. I've got one message that is 3 lines long. Every other message has been like really, really long. People sharing their
Story.
feelings about T12 and her cubs, about the man animal conflict, about sexism at work. It's about how we human
True.
beings are ruining,
Yeah, yeah,
uh, nature,
yeah.
and how we are solely responsible um, for it. And for all the changes that are happening, climate change and global warming, and for all those, the kind of impassioned messages people are sending me,
Hmm.
it's very telling.
Right. Talking about sexism also, there's a scene right at the start of the movie also when you are walking with them and you all are going and sitting in the car and he says, "Oh, pehle wo afsar the, wo ek dahad karte the aur ye ho jata tha." And, they're praising this man who worked in your place earlier and you had this expression that, okay, so, these things are there in the film at many aspects. Was there, Amit, was that a thing that you and Amit discussed? These things have to be there because you're a woman officer.
No, not at all. The story was fully his.
Yes.
Story, screenplay, dialogues. He, Yashasvi, and Asa have worked on it together. So,
Mhm.
I had no contribution in that.
Right.
But I could see glimpses of various things. And, he's a director with a light touch. So
Yes.
he's not going to hammer it down,
Right.
um, like shove it down your throat, but
Correct.
he
Yeah.
makes his point.
Right.
I
Very
think it's
subtle.
just that one thing they're talking about Sai Prasad, who was her
Right.
predecessor. And then
Right.
at the end, you realize that for them, it's just a cycle. So when the um, the next DFO comes in, they talk to
The
him about
same
Vidya
lines.
Balan.
Right. Right. All the messages that you get with it, you get. How often does a film like that come? You'll do so many movies, but there are films that will stay forever. Kahani still stays in our hearts, and Sherni really seems like that one.
Yeah, let's see. Time will tell, but I do think that it's a special film. And the reactions have really, really been overwhelmingly positive.
Right.
I thought it would take more time for people to watch the film and all that, but on the very first night, I think people have
Yeah.
watched it and then have been watching it since. Someone messaged me saying I've seen it twice
Wow.
already and I'm planning to see it a third time this evening. And I was like, wow,
Wow.
how
So,
can this get any better?
you think
But
the
yeah,
you think the transition is, initially when films were releasing on OTT, all actors used to say that, wo theater mein jaane ka, the first, when you see the reaction and people clapping, you understand it has worked. Now, you think we've reached a point where you start getting so many messages from around the globe, from different countries, and we've reached that point where you get a sense ki, okay, we get a sense of online also.
yeah, I think people have mobile phones today. So especially even if they don't have access to you, they're putting it out on social media. So the
Yeah.
reactions are immediate, whether they're sitting at home or in the theater.
Yes, absolutely. Great, Vidya. Anything you want to tell the audience, because this is this film, of course, gives a message for anyone who hasn't watched it yet. Very few people left, I think, but anyone who hasn't watched it yet, do you want to tell them, what is the bigger message that this film gives?
I think firstly, if you haven't watched it, please watch Sherni on Amazon Prime Video. And um, this film really is about many things. It's not just about one thing, but importantly, I think um, the overarching theme in the film is that we are responsible for the world around us, for the
Yeah.
environment, and therefore every little thing that we do impacts the environment, and the environment in turn impacts us.
Right.
So we can't be crying saying it's getting hotter every summer, the rains have come earlier, if we are not going to do anything about it.
True, true, true. Great, Vidya. Thank you so much. Sherni has
Thanks,
all
Rohit.
my love, and your performance is yet another performance that will stay with us. Thank you so much for doing this film.
Thank you, Rohit.